another episode of the Being in Doing podcast, where I try to create a space dedicated to the unique minds that are all around us and hopefully bring you a series of stories that will challenge, inspire, and stimulate your being. And today I'm really privileged to be interviewing actually a teacher of mine, Alemka Dauskardt. And the reason I wanted to have her on this podcast is that I experienced that she is able to gather herself in her peaceful center and connect with the world from that place, and by doing that also bring a little bit more peace to us. So thank you for that. And now I'm very curious to hear the story. How did you manage to do that, and what supported you in the journey? So welcome.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the opportunity to share a bit of myself and my experience, mainly through and about this work that I'm doing. So I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. So the first question is, what are some words that you identify yourself with?
Well, a woman, a mother, a wife, a psychologist, constellation facilitator. I could think of a number of words, but actually I'm trying not to think about myself in any categories, I suppose. And my journey of development really has been the journey of letting go of my many identities rather than trying to strengthen them or hang on to them or experience the world through them. So I think there are very little aspects of my life or my private or professional identity which I hang on to. So it's I think I have been really that has been the part of the development, to let go of all these different aspects which really put boundaries on us. If you define yourself as this or that, then there are certain limitations immediately in that. And then you're also expected to be in a certain way. Something is expected of you to behave or just be in a certain way, and that is always limiting. So the more fluent we are with our identity, I think the more free we are then to experience the world in every moment anew, and also to respond to that world from a new place, if you like.
Actually, that's the word that was coming to me, is experience. So how do you connect to your experiences, and how do you then not let go of the identity that connects to the experience, but actually connect to the experience itself?
Well, by being in the moment, largely, by opening myself up to whatever presents itself in the moment. I have trained myself in a sense in a certain kind of perception, which is perception. Hopefully, like the immediate perception of the phenomena as they present themselves. So rather than having lenses of previous experience or of my fixed identity position, or fixed position of any identity, and leaving, hopefully, the judgments aside as well. So if we can just open ourselves up to what is and what presents itself without judgment, without immediately thinking, oh, this is good, this is bad, or I like this, I don't like this, or any type filter that we put on our experience limits that experience. So if we can just open ourselves up to whatever presents without that judgment, as I said, even without previous knowledge and without previous experience, then we are more likely to be able to have this immediate connection with the world and with the present and with the now and with what is. And that, of course, is also a big aspect, as you know, of this work, constellation work, which I do. So through that, through learning that work, through doing that work, and through teaching that work, I have been I have learned really how to open myself up to experience and observe the phenomena as they present themselves.
And so what do you think is then beyond those categorizations, beyond the good and the bad, beyond the pleasant and unpleasant? So when you connect to that beyond, what is that you experience?
Well, that beyond is I would say not really beyond, but that is the reality. And only then actually we are able to perceive the reality as it is. Usually how we go about our lives and what we perceive and what sense we make of the world, what we see in the world, that is basically an illusion. So it is going beyond the illusion, if you like, and trying to perceive the world as it actually is.
So I would now go one step back before jumping into constellations, which is what was your path to get to the constellations?
Yeah. Well,
where do I start?
Where do I start? Yes. Where do I start? Well, of course, I can start with the beginning of my life, but then when does that start? Also, we can ask. I could start with my family and what I was born into. Also, through this work, through constellations, one thing that I have learned is that I can never be just me, myself, just an individual, separate from the family that I was born into, separate from all of my personal, of course, life experience or experiences, but also separate from whatever happened in my family, my primary family, and also my extended family, or separate from what happened in my family system through many generations. So we know that we are defined by that, and we are that. And we are always connected to that, part of the system, as we say in constellation jargon, if you like. So it's I am not just me, myself, but I'm also my parents, and I'm also their parents, and I'm also my other ancestors, and I'm also my roots, and I'm also everything that happened in this like extended family system, if you like, through generations. So that is all me. So yes, I mean, I could say that I was born in 1960 in Zagreb, but I also then need to add, that I was born as a second daughter into my family, and that I was born to parents who were born in the 30s, so who were growing up during the times of war. And that is really something that, of course, shaped them and what kind of parents they were. And not only them, but of course, a whole generation was shaped by war experiences. And so were my parents. So they had a difficult time growing up in their formative years. And there was, of course, poverty, and there was trauma. And yeah, there were war involvements, there were so there's all of that my parents were growing up with, and it is certainly a part of my family system then, and it's something that has influenced me. We also know that what shapes us are past experiences, as I said, often traumatic experiences. So in addition to these like war-induced situations, there were a number of kind of family tragedies which also shaped my family, and therefore myself as well. My mother lost a brother when he was just a few months old. It was so-called what we would call cot death these days, I suppose. So that was a big trauma for her and for her family. Father was imprisoned after the war. Her mother had typhoid. So all of this, of course, shaped her and who she was. And then on my father's side, he was born prematurely, and he didn't even weigh 2 kilos when he was born, for example. And in those days, no incubators, no formulas, nothing like that. Even though my grandmother gave birth in hospital, she was just discharged with a baby to go home and to wait for a baby to die. And apparently he did fit in a shoebox and was too weak to breastfeed. So he survived by sucking on the bread which was dipped in milk. Her mother dipped the bread into milk, and he sucked on that, and that's how he survived. And just on the hope and perseverance of my grandmother, who didn't want to give up on him. So this is something which is in my family system, and regardless of any criticism or me wishing things were different, or maybe that I got some things differently from my parents, all this pales into insignificance if you look at the fact that actually they did survive, and they didn't manage to pass life on to me. So, and when one looks at what cost and under what circumstances, one can only be grateful for life and for my beginnings. But this, I didn't always feel like that. It took actually many years for me to come to this position, because as many of us, I reprimanded my parents for what they did, or what they give to me, or what they didn't give to me, or what they didn't give to me. I was also critical. At some point in my life, I distanced myself from them. So it took me many years to come to this position of gratitude for life, and accepting my life the way it is, and loving them the way they are, and this making this gratitude for life a default position of mine, and how I approach life. But as I said, it took quite some time and work on myself, and of course the knowledge of constellation work. With the help of constellation work, I was able to come to that position.
Thank you for sharing this story, and I have this the image of that fits in a shoebox, and I always think about the two things. One is, we talk often about trauma, but then the other one is resilience. And what you have just described is an incredible story of resilience as well. And I'm curious. There is one sentence that in our sessions, you often mention it's at the cost of life, or I don't know exactly the translation, Poceni života. And so I'm curious, that position of gratitude, and the price that you have paid, every one of us has to pay for the life we are given. What is it that for you has been this thing that landed inside, that felt like, now this is the place where I feel the gratitude? Was that like a small succession of steps, or did you feel like there was something specifically that landed really nicely inside?
I think it's a gradual process, and it happens bit by bit, and it often happens through pain. We first have to go through quite a bit of anguish, even, and we have to, in a sense, test and feel what it feels like the other position, what it feels like, and what it creates. Like when we do not like our parents, and when we are very critical of how they were, and when we don't take them into our hearts, yeah? And if we put ourselves above them, and if we judge what they did or didn't do from our position, or the little one, or the more fortunate one who grew up in more fortunate circumstances. So one first has to experience, I think, the consequences of such attitude, which is often a lot of pain, anguish, depression, lack of success in life, and just not thriving, and the relationships being difficult, and things like that. So of course no one goes and says, oh yeah, now I'm going to do the work, that sounds good, to take my parents in, to take my life in. No, it doesn't happen like that. No one does it like that. And it's not just one thing. That's how it was for me, and I'm sure it's like that for many others. It's a gradual process where we realize, okay, we test it, and we see what makes us successful and healthy and happy, and what doesn't. So then you do more of what does make you happy and joyful and more successful in life in general. And through constellations, and of course from my personal experience, I have found out that what makes that happen, what allows for that, is this acceptance of life exactly under the circumstances in which it came to us. So I can't wish for my parents not to have had war experience and not to have been traumatized. That is just a stupid thing. Of course, I can't change the past, and now to wish that they didn't have these experiences, and therefore that they were not traumatized, or that this didn't happen, or that this happened differently, and then they would be able to be different towards me, or to give more, or something like that. If I wished for that, it is just silly, because it can't happen. And secondly, it is just focusing, as you said, of what we didn't have, and maybe focusing on trauma, but not focusing on survival, on resilience of survival, and the magnitude of surviving and of passing life on through very maybe difficult circumstances. This is just enormous. It is enormous. So if we focus on that, and if we allow ourselves to feel that, then this gratitude just gets bigger and bigger. We feel better and better, and actually through this gratitude, it's like we have more. We have more. So if I'm grateful for what I did have or have received from my parents, then it's like I'm receiving more. Like it's just like continuous flow of life and love, So gratitude actually, it's not like if you have more, you are more grateful. It's the other way around. If you are more grateful, you actually have more.
Mm-hmm. And so here there is something that always stays with me because of some people I interviewed where the circumstances were so dire. For example, I think there was one person where the father has killed his mother. And so, you look at that and at least when I sit in front of it, like, how can we hold that in our hearts when it sounds so dire and so difficult? And I know you have a lot of experience, so I'm just wondering, what are those sentences in these specific, very difficult situations? And I also know tragedy, or the word tragic, is not so, like, we look at things with a bit more ambivalence in constellations. And so this is what constellations brought to me, to not be afraid of difficult experiences. But I'm wondering, for people who are actually going through a lot of pain and who are facing this, I don't want to minimize that. And so I'm wondering, how can we talk more about that, basically?
Well, it makes a difference if someone is going through some difficulties right now in their lives, if they're experiencing abuse or something like that. Of course, the response then, is you have to respond in a certain way. Constellations mainly deal with past traumas, I would say, or with something which is not acute, but which has set into certain patterns which the person has been experiencing for a long time. And usually these patterns, they have their root cause in something that might happen in their childhood, or even something that happened in previous generations, or even something that happened 3 generations ago, which they don't know about. That's another aspect of constellations. I don't want to talk about it right now, but I just want to say that constellations mainly deal with these, like, past difficulties, past trauma, past abuse maybe, and past tragedies that happened in our family system. So it is something which is not happening right now. So it is something that we don't need to protect ourselves from right now. It is about seeing how do we integrate this past experience into our present now, so that we can be fully responsible in terms of responsibility to whatever is happening in our lives right now, to our partner or whatever else. And through constellations, we have learned that what actually helps and how we integrate these experiences. I mean, we can do it in different ways, and we can say, oh, it is terrible. It was terrible. It was a tragedy, and I remain angry about it. Usually people are angry about what happened. I cannot accept it. I cannot accept even that it happened, or that it had to happen. So I'm fighting against it. I'm still angry, maybe somewhere deep down. And a lot of energy is just tied in this, like, rejection of the event or situation and wishing it to be different. What actually strengthens us is looking at everything that happened, the way it happened, and again, looking at it in a way which doesn't immediately make this judgment, oh, this was terrible, or this was even bad, or this was a tragedy, or this was a trauma. As soon as we define it like that, we already are not in a good position. So if we can open ourselves to everything that happened, the way it happened, if we can look at it and we can accept it, not in a sense it was good or no one is responsible or, anything like that, or, it wasn't it wasn't bad. It's not about that. It's about accepting that it happened and seeing, okay, how can I move on from it? How can I take in what was good in it for me? How can I look at this event or the situation in a way which gives me strength rather than makes me into victim and thinks it's terrible and lets me and I remain stuck then for the rest of my life. And what is moving us forward is connecting to the essence, which is always, okay, I was given life, my life, under certain circumstances. A lot of good came with it, or bad came with it. These are the circumstances of my life. I have only this one life. I can either make the most out of it and live it to the full, or I can wish it away, or live in a way which is not really fully being in this life.
Mm. And so maybe it's a good moment to say something about constellations, because we have mentioned it several times, and maybe you want to just explain what they are and what their origin is and how is the work performed, and how do you then, if you want to choose to come to constellations, how do you do that? When do you think is the right moment?
Well, it's a very specific approach to life's difficulties. I would say. I don't want to say therapy on purpose because it is not really therapy. So we can't approach it in the same way as we approach therapy, and we don't approach the issues in the same way as they are approached in therapy. And also something else is required from a person who wants to work on their issue, and also from the facilitator. That's how we call them. Issue holder or person who works or wants to work on something, and the constellation facilitator. So we don't call it therapist, client. That's already a different framework, I would say. It is for anyone. Anyone can do it. And it is for any issues we might have in life, for example, low life energy, depression, anxiety, addictions, eating disorders, illnesses, problems with children, problems in relationships, relationship problems. So really, anything that we can imagine as part of life. So that's the area that constellation works with, or that we can apply constellations in. So in any issues that we can imagine, which is part of life and maybe even part of death. Death often figures prominently in constellation work. That's the first thing that we can say about it. The second thing is that constellations happen in a certain field. We move in a certain field with constellations where we receive informations from the field, from the energetic field, we could say, of a person or of a family system, or intergeneration or ancestry system. And this information is not something that comes from our head. So often through constellation, we get information which a person doesn't really know about. We get information about the events or some situations in the family system which consciously the person even doesn't have any information about. So that is another aspect of constellations, which is, okay, we rely on energy fields and we rely on the information which comes from those energy fields. So it is energy work, we could say.
So for you as a constellator, as a facilitator, what helps you to, let's say, to stop your mind from getting involved and from connecting to those energy fields? So where's that practice in? Because I've seen you working and I can see that happening, but I don't know if people can actually imagine how that looks like.
Yeah. Well, as you know, it often is done in groups where people choose from members of the group, from the participants, they choose people to represent certain members of their family, usually. We work with family systems, but we can work on other systems as well. And then these representatives experience certain sensations and simply get information from the energy field. And the more we can open ourselves up to that, and the more, as you mentioned, we can connect with that with the energy of that field. The more we are receptive to receiving information from that energy field. And of course, there is always this question, well, maybe people are bringing something of their own into it, or maybe a facilitator is guided by her or his judgments or views or opinions or anything like that. And yes, that can all happen. But what is the prerequisite really for facilitating this work is to try to be as open as possible, as empty as possible, as without judgments possible, and not relying on our previous experience, on books, on theories, or on our life experiences. Nothing. Just being totally open to what shows itself. If the degree to which we manage to do that is the degree to which the constellation then unfolds faithfully to that system that we are working on, and also the degree to which the healing, we could say, happens through a constellation. Because we have also realized that just being in this field does us good, and it is not some intervention which a facilitator does. So it's not an intervention on the part of the facilitator so much, which brings positive change and which brings a difference, but it's like these forces which are working in our fields or through us. They are actually moving us. If we let them, if we allow ourselves to be moved by them, they move us towards greater health, towards greater balance, towards greater harmony, towards greater success, towards greater joy in life. It's like getting in touch with our own nature, our own true nature. And getting in touch with the mystery of life, and getting in touch with the healing forces, we could almost say divine forces, which work through all of us. So the more we surrender to that, the more successful, we could say, the constellation is, or or more benefits the whole process brings to the person who is setting it up.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, you mentioned healing in health, and one of those topics that we cover is health in constellations. And I'm curious, what insights have you gotten about health through the constellation work, health and sickness?
Yeah, well, that's a big topic, and of course we could talk about this for a long time. And yes, indeed, we have the whole modules, as you know, devoted to this particular topic. But I will try to say something about it in a kind of
concise
and give the essence really of constellation approach to illness and sickness. Or really, I could just say that what we have learned about it through constellations, about illness and health, is that illness is almost always an expression of some disbalance in the system. Very often in the family system, which doesn't mean only our current family or only our primary family or not even our extended family. Yeah? It also includes our ancestors, so it goes few generations back. And we see that illness is often connected with something which happened in our family system and some trauma which hasn't been resolved. So someone has somewhere been excluded or forgotten or treated unfairly, or some crime wasn't punished, or there was something which had to be done and said, but it wasn't done, so something unfinished. So it is things like that which actually create this disbalance in the system. And illness, actually, we have realized or learned through constellations that illness is an attempt of the system to fix things or to include those who have been excluded, or to include that which has been excluded, which can be an emotion, or, as I said, responsibility or guilt or something like that. So something has been excluded, something has to be looked at. Yeah, because we often think, what happened in the past doesn't matter. What people often think or used to think in previous generations, in particular, what children don't know about it can't hurt them. So then we try to protect our children by not talking about this, by keeping something secret. It turns out that exactly that which we are keeping secret, which is not out in the open, exactly that is hurting our children usually.
And sorry,
yeah.
I'm curious actually there about keeping these secrets, but then we know that children are also not to be used as someone to carry our pains. So where do you think the integration for the parents, or is it that the integration has to happen in the parents so that the child would not implicitly pick up on these things? How do you think then now having this knowledge through constellation can help us, the parents who are now parents, to not be afraid of what if I say too much or say too little? So what do you think then is the work of a parent here and now with the knowledge we already have?
Well, as you hinted at in your question, it is mainly the work of the parent on their own issues, so to speak, or on the issues that the parent takes from their primary family or from earlier on. So it is often, like these entanglements, we call it in constellations, when we are entangled with some trauma or something that happens in previous generations, often that entanglement does have a source somewhere in previous generations, something that happened earlier. So something that doesn't have to do with a child now, and certainly a parent cannot resolve it, or, say by saying this or that to a child. The parent looks hopefully at these issues himself or herself, so that the child doesn't have to. Because if we don't resolve these entanglements, they are passed on from one generation to another. So if I, as a parent, don't resolve it, I will pass it on to my children, totally unconsciously. I can be totally and unwillingly, of course. No parent wants to pass something bad to their children. But it happens. So if we don't disentangle the entanglement, our children pick it up. Even though we don't want that, and even we try everything to protect them from that, the best protection is to do our own work.
And I just want to go to the small figurines, and I want to ask you. I love that. I've seen many of those images, but I want to ask you, what do they mean for you?
The figurines, which I
on your table. So
these ones.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is American pre-Columbian art, really. Not the original, of course, but that's the copy of this of that. That's where it comes from. But the image is just often used to invoke these, or to portray the interconnectedness of all beings. So that's why I like it. And yeah, it is remindful of this knowledge that we are all connected and that everything is connected, which tribal people, before this Western materialized civilization developed, and the tribal people knew about that. They knew about these laws of life, the laws of love. They knew about the order which exists in the universe. They knew about how we have to be and how we align ourselves with the spirit, so that we are thriving and that we are good, and that we have good relationships and whatever we consider successful life. They knew that this connection, mainly and primarily to the spirit, is essential. Without that, there is nothing. And in constellations, partly we tap into this ancient knowledge, and it is partly the knowledge about, as I said, the ancient laws of life and the order which exists. And it is partly the knowledge about how to relate to that, and how to tap into that. If you like, through like shamanic practices. Also, shamans were the ancestors of constellators, current day constellators. So shamans were doing energy healing work, and this is really what constellations are. And we know that Bert Hellinger, who was who is a founder of this work, also spent 16 years in Africa, and was quite in touch with tribal knowledge of the Zulus. So this knowledge that we rely on in constellations, and maybe in some modes of healing, but certainly the connection with the energy, or with the essence, we could say, or we could say with the spirit, if we don't have bad reaction to that concept or a name. So yeah, this is kind of reminiscent of all of that, and constellations do put us in touch with this ancient knowledge and with our true nature, in a sense, which we have forgotten about, I think, in modern times. So in essence, in constellations, and with constellations now, we are like rediscovering the wheel.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to hear more about your experience of working with Bert Hellinger, but maybe before that, just how did you get to constellations?
Yeah, well, at that time I was living in Australia, because that's where I spent 20 years of my life, and I was studying Gestalt therapy at the Gestalt Institute of Melbourne. So it was really through Gestalt training that I got in touch with constellation work. And it was like, oh, wow. I was taken by it, and from then on, it was like I couldn't leave it alone, really. So at that time, there was in Australia, there was no one. So the person who I experienced it through came from England to teach it, and there was no one in Australia who knew about it, so there was no opportunity to learn there. That was in the 90s, 95, I think, when I was first exposed to the work, and then I had to find ways how to learn more about it. So rather than waiting for this person to come once a year to Australia, well, that was how it went at the beginning. But then I looked for opportunities in Europe to study directly with Hellinger, and then with his closest associates then. So there were these international intensives, and and then attending just as many workshops as possible with as many facilitators, and then doing the work both in Australia and in Europe, starting to do it by myself and learning through it, because there is no specific training for this approach, and no accreditation, or no, it is not regulated really as other therapies are. So it was mainly learning through experience, through exposure to this work, through spending as much time in the field as possible, and of course, like being with, experiencing Bert Hellinger doing this work, and actually having had a good fortune to have my own constellation facilitated by him. That was really a life savior for life-saving for me, and it was a game changer in terms of like my life path. And so from then on, I just knew I had to devote my life to this kind of work. And it often happens like that. People feel drawn to the work. They say they feel called to experience it, and then they feel called to do it. So there is kind of, the work takes hold of you, rather than you getting hold of the work. So yeah, that's how it's happens gradually. But yeah, then I really I worked as a therapist, and I worked as a psychologist for a while, a good part of my professional career, but now I abandoned all these identities. I don't identify myself as a Gestalt therapist anymore, or even as a psychotherapist, or it's constellation facilitator. This is what I do, and even this is becoming a bit of a narrow definition of myself or a identity. So maybe I'll change that to
human.
Yes, human in the service of life. Because that is a borrowed phrase from Bert Hellinger again, when they ask him, okay, well, is this psychotherapy? Are you a psychotherapist? And he said, no. Well, how do you describe yourself? They ask him. Well, someone in the service of life, he said. And that is beautiful. And this is really what this work is. It is in service of life. And through it, we are just serving life in many different ways, and the kind of most in the broadest sense imaginable.
And I'm curious, what brought you to Australia? How did that come to be? That's quite a distance from Croatia.
It is quite a distance, and it has been quite a journey, not only in kilometers, but in every other way. Well, that story really started when I was 19, and when I fell in love. Of all places, in the romantic island of Hvar. And of all people, I fell in love with a Serb. So with he was from
Belgium. We need to mention what it means for a Croatian and a Serb to. You need to explain the context, because I don't know if people in English would know it.
Yes. Well, that's a troubled context. Whenever there is a Serbian-Croatian connection, there's trouble ahead. And yeah, actually, we got together, and I have moved to Belgrade rather than just staying at home and attending university like it was expected of me, and then maybe getting married or things like that. When I was 19, I moved to Belgrade, and I actually studied psychology there. I enrolled into the psychology course at the University of Belgrade, and got my degree from there. And that's like a past life, but it's a big part of my life, and I really enjoyed my life there in Belgrade. There were student days, and we were both students. We got married and studying, and I finished actually my degree completed it in pretty much on time, which is miraculous, seeing that we were just moving from one place to another, living in these converted garages and in rented places, and just playing cards all night with our friends, so going out a lot. So I loved that time. And later on we moved to Zagreb, and this is where we had our daughter. But that was all like the late 80s, and the troubled relationships between, all of Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, but especially between Serbia and Croatia, which led to the war then. It was already on the way then. So, being in an ethnically mixed marriage, we couldn't really find a place either in Zagreb or in Belgrade. So that was the reason why we migrated to Australia then in '88. So that's how I got to be in Australia. And then our daughter had only a year and a half. So, but we went there for a few years only, but then it turned out to be 20 for me. And in the meantime, then because the war broke out at home, so then there was no going back for a while, and then the war broke out in our relationship, of course, as well, and then we divorced there in Australia. And yeah, I proceeded to live there for a number of years, and that's another like past life and a big chapter of my life. I loved living there too. It was Australia is beautiful. So there are the special place in my heart for Belgrade and also for Melbourne, where I lived for all this time. And I traveled around Australia quite a bit and raised a child and got my master's degree in psychology and completed my Gestalt therapy training and a number of other things. So it was a very rich time. Not easy. It was quite difficult at times, but also I think I used it in a very good way, and it was very good for me, overall. But then when I got together with Max, my husband, who is German and who also lived in Australia, we kind of wanted to come back to Europe. So it was, we decided to do that. So in, I think, 2008, we came from Australia and we came to live here in Zagreb, and now we live on the outskirts of Zagreb in this in what used to be a weekender, my parents' weekender, among the vineyards, and we only have rainwater and we live in beautiful nature. So this is where we found our place. Yeah, which is really not really. It could be anywhere, but we created our universe really here, and this like being close to nature has become more and more important throughout, like in all these years, and being now in this later stage of our lives, I suppose that is really something which we both care about, and that's really important for us to be in touch with nature. So this is where we live now, and this is my journey from Zagreb, Belgrade, Australia.
Wow.
Back to a private universe.
Wow. I mean, one thing that again comes to me is the word resilience. And I could just imagine again being, I'm saying I could just imagine, actually I lived it. So I could just imagine how is it to live with far away from your family and getting divorced. And I just realized that I've gone through the same thing. So
okay. Yeah.
So I just yeah. So and in the same time finishing the Gestalt training and getting to know constellations. So I feel a lot of resonance there. And I'm wondering what was your support there? What did you find as support for you, and how did you go through that period?
Yeah, migration, and like living in a different country, as you know, is quite an experience, and certainly an experience which shapes us and our identity. I could also say I'm a migrant, one of these, identities. And in Australia, I worked a lot with migrants. I worked with people, helping them to settle actually, and to find their feet in a new culture. I worked with refugees a lot. I worked with people who experienced torture and trauma, war torture and trauma. So I worked a lot on these issues of displacement. And of course, I was displaced myself, and I could feel what it was like not being able to speak in your language, not being in something which is not familiar and which you did not were not born into and did not grow in or with. So yeah, I think it's definitely a determining or shaping experience, the migration. Yeah, I had very little support system in terms of no family there, so it was just the friends who I made there. And then, as I said, divorcing, so then you don't have a support of the partner, or your partnership is not supporting you anymore in that process. So that was very, very tough. And this is really where I experienced what supports us in life and what doesn't. And I realized how not just being physically away from our family, our parents, our roots, our country, our birth country, what that does to us, that is not a problem. You can go, you can physically be away, and if you have your parents in your heart, if you are well connected, if one is well connected with one's parents, then one can be at home anywhere, and the migration is not such a problem. But if you cut yourself off here, from your family or your parents, as I said before, maybe because you reproach them for something or have some complaints about your life and them, and yes, and then if you are away from your country of birth, and then if your country of birth is going through the war and you are not always in tune and in agreement with what's happening in your country, then it's like you are a tree with roots cut off, and you cannot. There's no support. It doesn't matter if you have, I don't know how, this physical support of whatever kind. If you don't have this support which comes from your roots and a good connection with your roots, first and foremost with your parents, then with your family system, then with your ancestors, then with your culture, then with your country of birth, but mainly country of birth and the mother and our mothers. We have to be connected well with them. If we are not connected well with our country, if we are also having all these accusations of our country, if we are critical of it, if we don't love it in a sense, then we also cut our roots and also can't thrive, whether in that country or then especially somewhere else. So this is what I have found out the hard way and in my own personal experience and through the experiences of working with people who were displaced themselves. So what is important? What gives us support? It is our good connection with our roots, and first and foremost, good connection with our parents and good connection with our life, the way it came to us through them. This is what gives us support, and this is essential. You can have everything else. If you don't have that, you don't thrive. And if you have that, you can thrive in all sorts of circumstances and in different countries and whatever. So it is, I found really, that was essential. And I could say it was so difficult at times to survive there. There's like a few, I could easily say a few times I came to the brink of survival in this or different way, or this or the other way. And that really forced me to find the connection which which enables me to survive and which feeds me and supports me. And this was mostly the good connection with my parents, and then good connection with my country, and most of all, good connection again with our true nature and with the spirit of existence and with the forces which work through us and through the cosmos. So this is what gives us support. And like fixing things on the surface, or just working on your I don't know, this trauma or that trauma which you experience yourself personally, it doesn't cut it. It doesn't do it for us. We all have to be connected well with our essence and with the essence of life. And the only way to connect with that essence is through our parents. There is no other way. Because most of us try to bypass our parents and to connect directly with the souls by belonging to some spiritual community or finding a replacement for our parents. So it doesn't work that way. So we have to connect with the essence of life through our parents. And when we manage to do that, then this is where we get our strength from, and our health from, and our success from.
And I'm curious. This is just almost as if, is this just like a developmental stage where we go through and the anger is there? We, as you said, we need to explore the edge of the anger on one side, and then slowly coming back to the acceptance of everything that we have also received. Do you think we can bypass that step, or do you think that's a healthy part of actually allowing ourselves to feel the anger for the things we haven't gotten, and then that we can take them into our hearts? Because I mean, for me, I kind of felt like I could not avoid that anger. But I wonder if maybe some people can, and I can advise them to do differently than me.
Yes. Well, everything has its place, and of course, anger can also serve us well, because it's an energy which forces us to do certain things. So there's place for that, but it's not actually very useful. And just feeling anger or just expressing the anger, it doesn't get us anywhere. There's always more anger than to be expressed. And in constellations, we don't actually encourage the expression of anger or feeling of anger. And we always, constellation work is very pragmatic. We always look at what serves us, what doesn't serve us, what takes us further, what keeps us stuck. So anger keeps us stuck, and it doesn't serve us well. And it's really if it can get bypassed, it should get bypassed, and it's as I said, it's not useful. So that's not the emotion that we would work with. In constellations, actually, we don't work with any emotions, but we certainly don't encourage anger, because anger is a rejection, and it takes us away from. We push it away from ourselves. And what are we angry about, or who? Usually at our closest, usually at our parents. So we just push them away. And what we found the solution is for our life and for our thriving. How we thrive is by inclusion of everything, and everything that happened exactly the way that happened. And once you are able to do that, and through constellations, it's easy to bring a person to that point pretty quickly. And once the person is able to do that, then there is no anger. Anger disappears. Anger disappears as an emotion. So the solution is in accepting, in opening ourselves to everything that is, to how it happened, accepting that, accepting that these are the circumstances of our lives. And when we do it, and when we are grateful for what we have received, and especially when we are grateful to our parents for giving us life, this then opens a whole new world for us. Then only we can have our full life. Then we can be free from our parents and from whatever happened, and we can carve our life for ourselves. Only when we accept our bonds and our traumas, if you like, or whatever happened, and if we accept our parents the way exactly they are, and the life exactly how it came through them to us, then it's like, then we are free. It's freedom from anger too. Anger keeps us stuck. So then we are free to experience life, to live it fully. Then we have access to full life energy. Before that, we don't. So we cut ourselves from life energy. So, that the connection with the gratitude for what we have received, that connects us with life's energy and enables us to live our life fully as how we can, with all the advantages and all the limitations that we were born into. And we happily live within those limits. And if we are, without anger, and if we have loving relationships, and if we are joyful, then I readily accept my limitations or the limitations of my life.
And maybe this ties in well with the questions of success. So how do you see success yourself or through constellations?
Yes, well, exactly like that, what I've just described. We are successful only when we can do this movement, which I just described, and only actually when we do this movement, can we have what's considered like more ordinary success in life. Only then we can be successful in life, in like material ways, if you like, or in relationship ways, whatever, however it finds its expression. But success in this like constellation sense, really the first success is us coming into life. That is our first success. We could even say, the sperm and an egg coming together, which is 1 in a zillion chance, that's our first success. And then if pregnancy went well, and if birth went well, and we came into this life, that's the second big success, huge success. And the odds are, that anything can happen, So we need to celebrate that success. And then if we manage to connect with our mother, and if our mother managed to put us on her breast, and if we manage to latch on to her and feed and breastfeed, that's our second success. And then if we manage to keep sucking on life from our mother and taking whatever comes to us from our parents, receiving in gratitude, then we are well set up for our life and to be successful in life. Like more ordinary ways of understanding success. But really, success in life is connecting with our life energy and living it to the full. That is successful life, isn't it? I mean, it's not having a lot of money, or it is connecting with your life, living it fully and living it to the full, the way it is given to us. And every life has got its particular circumstances. So it's not like we are all successful and they're not objective. There are no objective measures of success, of course. So what is life success for you? How does your life succeed through you will be different from how my life succeeds through me.
I must say this has been one of the most beautiful descriptions of success I have heard so far. So thank you so much. And I'm curious, in your own process, what do you think was the truth about reality that you were resisting and that you kind of were unwilling to accept for the longest of time, that was kind of impeding your accepting life as it is?
I think living and progressing with your life or with your development or growth, if you like, is a continuous process of giving up on illusions, really, and connecting more and more with reality. So we all start with incredible illusions about love, life, success, all sorts of things. Yes. So, but then bit by bit, life teaches us. Yeah. As I said, usually the hard way. We have to learn the hard way, so it seems. So yeah, it is just, I see it just as a constant process of giving up on illusions.
But the next question for me is love is. And you just said that partially we have illusions about it, but after you peeled off some of your illusions, what is left for you?
What is left after we peel off all the illusions?
No, I'm saying the question I had on my list was love is. So in your own process, when you peeled all these layers of messages, what's left for you about love?
Okay. Love is, at the risk of sounding trite, I will say it, love is the biggest force in the universe. And love is the essence. Of course, not the romantic love that we think about when we mention that word love. Love has got nothing to do with romance or with romantic love or even with the feelings of love. Love is definitely not the feeling. Love is not a feeling. Love is as I said, the force in the universe which holds everything together. And it has got many faces, and it follows certain order. It follows certain laws, natural laws, the laws which are given and which seem to permeate the whole universe, not just our families or just much broader than that. So love is a very strong force which, as I said, follows certain order and certain laws, and which only if we learn about these laws of love, that is also Hellinger's phrase. This is how he called it when he first encountered the experience of it, really, through constellations. That's how we know about these laws, because we see them at work in a constellation process. And through many constellation processes, it's come to understand some universal laws of love, which he observed in constellations and in working with many different families, and he understood that if we want to have love in our life, we need to be in harmony with these laws. So there are certain things that we have to do and certain things that we must not do if we want to have love in our lives. But as I said, love is much broader than a bond between two people, a romantic love. So we could also say that love means accepting life on its own terms. So, love of life. What is love of life? How can we love life? We can only love it if we fully accept it the way it comes to us. So, and we can only be loving towards others and experience love if we have this basic love of life. And another thing we can say about love is that love doesn't judge. So love means being turned to everything and everyone equally. If you say we love everything and everyone, what does that mean? We don't make a judgment. I like this one, I don't like that one. I prefer this one. This is bad, this is good. So no, we are equally turned to everything which exists. Everything. All the events, all people, all nature, all laws of life. We just are turned to everything equally. There's no judgments, no exclusion. So it's like some form, love is a form of universal acceptance or radical inclusiveness. Radical inclusion. Yeah.
And on the other side, we were talking about life, but then death comes a lot in constellation work. And actually, I must admit, there was our one of our modules, which was my true nature, and I came with this idea of, I'm going to discover what is my true calling or something. That was something in my head, and I left with such a pervasive feeling of one of the sentences you said, that our true nature is that we are mortal. And it was maybe one of the strongest modules I have experienced. And what I think I learned that I didn't know was how much we reject death and how much we don't have rituals to give it its proper place. So I would like to hear more from you. What do you see in your practice, and how did you kind of integrate death in your life?
Yeah, that is a very nice question, and very nice experience of yours that you shared. Yes, coming in touch with our mortality, or bringing that to our awareness that this is part of our nature, that everything which is born has to die, gives us a different perspective to life. And of course, we all know that. But to actually bring this into our awareness and to live life with the awareness of imminent death is really something different. It is teaching us how to live well. It's forcing us to live well, because we know that death is just around the corner. They say, well, if you turn, that death is behind our left shoulder all the time. If you turn fast enough, you might be able to get a glimpse of. So it is living with that awareness which actually makes life more precious. And we become more grateful for the time that we do have on this earth, which is very short in the bigger scheme of things. So, it is the awareness of our own mortality is a great, potentially, a great source of light, joy, and gratitude. Also, what is connected to that is connection to our true nature, which we could also say, which are with our essence. We mentioned that before, like connection with our essence. Well, what is our essence? Of course, I won't even try to answer that question or explain it, or we don't know. But what we do know is that this essence that is there when everything else is gone, and which is there when we strip ourselves from all our identities, for example. So what is it? Like, if all of that is gone, what remains? And we could also say, okay, what, even when we die, when we are dead, the essence of us maybe outlives, not maybe, but we know it does outlive our physical existence. I mean, we know that because we like, for example, if our parents are dead, they are very much in our body, and we are very much in their energy field, and we have memories of them for as long as that is there. We have an energetic connection. And in constellations, more practically, actually, when we set up representatives for dead persons, we actually see that their energy is still very much alive. So there is something of our essence which outlives even our physical death. So what does that mean then, connecting to that essence? Yeah? And what is that essence? Of course, we don't know what it is, how to call it, and we don't have to. But we can make an effort that during our lifetime we connect to that essence, and that we stay connected to it as much as we can. And this is partly why I love constellation work, because it does connect me to that, and the practice, the teaching of the work, and it connects me to that. And I see it connects others to that essence as well. And it is also it is also a spiritual path. It is a path of spiritual development. So it is really connecting with the spiritual aspects of our existence, which feeds our essence, which feeds us, and which makes us not afraid of death, and which makes us live our lives fully, and which also gives us support and makes our lives successful in a very, very broad sense of that term.
And I just want to come back to the ritual of letting go of the dying, and I remember one constellation very somehow vividly, where it was the gratefulness for what we have gotten from someone again, and then allowing them to go on their own terms. And this was so healing for me to have that sentence somehow, and to kind of not be in control of like being the bigger than life, basically. And I'm just wondering, maybe that kind of what is what's the place that you connect to when you give this kind of sentence, for example, and what is that peaceful center for you when you know I'm letting you go on your own terms?
Hopefully this work, constellation work, is done from this empty center as much as possible. And this empty center is quite full, we could also say. It's empty of, our expectations, plans, control, judgment, but it is full of essence, we could say. So I think through that empty center, we connect with the essence. And in that essence, very little of what we usually think of as important in life, very little of that remains there. So it's just basically letting go of all of that. And connecting with others through that essence as well, and allowing everyone to be connected to that essence through their own particular life's journey or particular destiny. So, for example, if our father died young, when we were 5, it was, of course, a huge blow to us. It probably shaped the course of our life from then on, a relationship with our mother, a relationship with him, of course. It influenced us probably in many different ways. And then we go into this, I wish it wasn't so. And I was shortchanged, and I was supposed to receive more, but I didn't, and maybe even be angry about that. Yeah? And not having then a loving place for our father in our heart, we reject him, so we cut off ourselves from our life energy, which comes through him. So all these complications. So in constellations, we have seen that if we manage to connect with the essence of his life's journey, if you like, and of his destiny, and if we can allow him to have his destiny, and if we respect that, and if we don't try to interfere with our ideas of success and what is good or successful life or long life, when is a person supposed to die or not, when we don't interfere with our thoughts and judgments, then we can allow each person their own destiny. And that's releasing and relieving for them and for us. Then we can also live our own destiny. Then we also take our proper place in our life with these particular circumstances, and we make the most out of that. And each one of us has got their own life's journey, a particular life's journey, and maybe a particular destiny, and that has to be respected. So we must not, in a sense, interfere with our judgments and thoughts and wishes with that. And we also have noticed that if we do it like that, with the help of constellations, if we manage to get the person to that point where a person connects, say, with the father, with such a destiny, then there is a respect for father, for his birth, for his life, and for his death. And then we can leave his destiny to him, and also accept the terms of our own destiny. And we see that then from that point, from that position, it's something can open up for us. What can open? The whole world opens up for us. So if we are connected with that essence, then a lot is possible. So as I said, this goes further than therapy, or just working with people who have issues in their lives. This is like the work or the journey that we could all benefit from.
Yeah. I think I have exhausted the questions at this moment. I want to ask, would you like to add something that you think I haven't asked?
No, I don't think, I can't think of anything. I think we've been talking for quite a long time, and we have covered a lot of ground, and you have asked really good questions, and very essential questions, I could say, which did bring us to the essence really of this wonderful approach that I'm using, and the essence of this wonderful life that we are grateful to be living. So I really enjoyed it, and I think it also feels for me very rounded and complete.
So I will just do the rapid fire questions, which are not about nothing about danger. One is, what is one absurd thing about you that not many people know about? And this is my favorite.
One of which?
Absurd thing that not many people know about you.
Oh, I don't know if I do anything absurd. I make jam. I go like through 20 kilos of little plums, and deep hit them. It takes me hours just to make jam out of them. I think that's pretty absurd. Or I also come back to check the every door that I lock, be it a car. Or I have to come back at least once, sometimes
several times.
Sometimes several times. So yeah, that's a bit absurd, I think.
And what kind of compliments, if any, do you like to receive?
I don't like to receive compliments, basically, in general. I give myself compliments, and I think I can assess the best if I have done something good, right, or useful, or kind, better than anyone else. And I can also be my worst critic too. But yeah, compliments are usually like superficial or trite, or so I kind of assess myself on a much more deeper basis. I'd like to think, and and it's I really am at a point in my life where I don't care what others think about me much. So, whether someone wants to compliment me or criticize me, I don't buy too much into that. So yeah, if you like receiving compliments, then you have to hear criticism as well, and then you adjust yourself to that. No, I've got different reference points.
And what do you like to gift people?
I don't make many gifts, really. Hardly any. I think what I gift to people is my presence, my care, maybe my perception, and my like my goodwill. I can think of someone in a particular way, and wish them well, and I think that's a gift that maybe some people receive even without knowing. but it's that I don't give material gifts really.
Well, now we are completely done. Thank you very much for taking the time, and I really learned again a lot and enjoyed it.
Thank you, Alexandra, again for creating this opportunity for, I've learned a bit about myself too through this. And yes, the questions were great and the overall experience was very pleasant, and hopefully it's going to be useful to the listeners.
Upravo ste čuli priču Alemke Dauskardt, magistra psihologije, gestalt terapeuta i sistemskog konstelatora sa dugogodišnjim iskustvom rada u oblasti savjetovanja, porodične terapije i traume. Od prvog susreta sa konstelacijskim radom preko edukacije s Bertom Hellingerom, ona već godinama vodi konstelacije i odškolovala generacije konstelatora od kojih se mnogi danas i sami bave ovom metodom. Ako želite da saznate više o njenom radu, posjetite internet stranicu Konstelacija Kroacija. Hvala što ste deo ovog putovanja i ukoliko vam se ovaj razgovor dopada, podelite kako bi naše priče dospele do više ljudi.